Okay. All right. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the June session of the Mental Health is Essential program series that is ongoing throughout 2021 on the second Tuesday evening of each month. So we're happy to have you all here with us tonight to talk with Dr. Christine Somervill and our panelists about how to find your okay place in times of turmoil and a little bit of chaos all around us still. Dr. Somervill is the program director at NAMI, Cook County North Suburban, and she is going to lead our conversation and facilitate the meeting for us tonight. So Christine, I'll let you take over.
Thank you, Jill, and thank you so much for inviting us to be a part of this program. So it is my pleasure to introduce tonight's conversation because we have an outstanding panel of NAMI presenters who dedicate an enormous amount of their time to helping others. A little bit about NAMI, if you don't know us, NAMI Cook County North Suburban is your NAMI affiliate in Evanston. We serve Evanston residents and 16 other communities. And we offer classes and support groups and programs like this, all free to those who want to partake. We host 45 peer support group meetings each month. And these support groups are for family members who are caregivers of a loved one who has a diagnosis. And also there are groups for individuals who have a diagnosis and are living in recovery. Our panelists all are certified, NAMI certified peer support facilitators, and all of them are Evanston residents. Each of them works with different groups of people. They listen to and partner with those who attend their groups to solve problems and to help them find ways to live their best lives. So let me introduce our panelists for tonight, and then we'll get started with our conversation. Dolores Malone. Dolores, raise your hand, please. There you go. Dolores Malone established the first mental health ministry at Sherman Methodist Church, and she also facilitates a monthly group meeting there. Dolores is also a teacher for NAMI. She teaches a family-to-family class, and so she is the primary lead for this support group at Sherman Methodist Church, along with the pastor. Chris Gillock. He facilitates a family support group, and usually it's at St. Francis Hospital, but since the pandemic, it is now virtual, and they meet every Saturday virtually on the Zoom platform. Again, it's free to all, and all are welcome. And Alyx, there you go, Alyx Kesselring, she facilitates actually 3 groups called Connection. And this group is for individuals living in recovery. Right now, they are all 3 are virtual and Zoom. Everyone is welcome. So let me just put in a little plug here that after tonight's conversation, if you find that you'd like to join one of these groups, please do so. You can find information about them on our website at NAMI.ccns.org, www. We'll put that in the chat at the end of the program. So there's another reason I'm excited about tonight's conversation. Understanding others' perspectives is one of the most powerful ways to grow personally and to help others grow. Our perspectives are shaped by our life experiences, right? And so just a brief story about that. I have a good friend, a couple friend, who not long ago went to a movie. This is when it was pre-COVID, so it was in a movie theater. And when they came back, I was chatting with them, and the woman told me, Vicky was her name, she started to tell me about the movie and told me what a beautiful love story it was. Well, her husband, Michael, interrupted her and said, this was this was a war story. It was not a love story, and proceeded to tell me about the war and what happened, what transpired. And I just had to chuckle because they were at the same movie, they saw the same story, and their takeaways were completely different, right? So that was perspective. Another story, just quickly, I have a very close friend, an older gentleman, who once I said to him, are you happy? And he said, I don't really think that way. And I was a little perplexed, and I said, why? And he said, for me, it's more a matter of how many problems do I need to fix on any given day? Again, perspective, right? So, I mean, we don't really think about this often in our lives, but our life experiences bring us to a point of our perspective on the world and our life and our daily activities is so individualistic. And it's important for us to share these stories and to share our perspectives that shape our lives. So tonight's conversation will begin with a question to our three panelists. And I think the way we'll do this is I won't call on you. I'll let you just kind of jump in, raise your hand and jump in. So any one of the three of you can start this, but I'd like to start by asking, what brought you to becoming a peer support group leader at NAMI?
I'll kick that off, I guess. Right. Well, I got involved with NAMI because my life was a burning dumpster. All my family members with mental illnesses became extremely symptomatic concurrently. My family was falling apart. My former spouse had bipolar illness, which they had no insight into their condition, so was in a manic episode and was doing terrible things. So I came to NAMI with my hair on fire. You can see it's all gone now, but back then and was just seeking information because I didn't really have a lot of knowledge of these illnesses and how best to interact with people that are in the throes of a crisis. And so I went to a family support group, and from there I went to the family-to-family education program. I think Dolores, you might have been my teacher. I think you were. So Dolores is my sensei, my teacher, my guru. And we had a wonderful family-to-family class that we all bonded and got a lot of education. It was terrific. And at the end of the sessions, there was sort of a Q&A, and I raised my hand and said, the family support groups are only meeting like once a month, and that's really inadequate. You really need to have at least twice a month for these groups, because crises happen every day, and to wait 3 weeks before you can get to a group is it's just awful. So they said, well, we need more facilitators to do that. How would you like to be trained as a facilitator? So it became a you put your hand up and make a suggestion, you better be ready to assist in implementing. So I went down and to Peoria and got trained, and was assigned to the Evanston family support group on Saturday mornings. And we went from once a month to twice a month. And then I got a great co-facilitator, Jennifer Mackley, and we decided to go every week. So we're operating every Saturday now. So I've been really deeply involved with NAMI since 2012, and I decided to become in this facilitating role because I wanted to have groups more often, basically. And we'll talk, I'm sure, more about the group dynamics and why it's so healing. But to me at that time, no help I was getting, no individual therapy, no family work, no nothing was giving me the bennies that I was getting out of sitting with people who are in similar circumstances, and maybe maybe they're in a different stage of their journey with their mentally ill loved ones, but they intuitively know the issues that I'm facing and the pain that I was going through. And that was something I really, really needed and still need, as a matter of fact, every week.
Yeah, I'll go next. I'm Dolores Malone, and I think what brought me to NAMI was my son was diagnosed, well, ultimately diagnosed as being bipolar, and he had gone for almost 8 years without a diagnosis, without a real diagnosis. And I was looking to write a children's book, which still hasn't been written, but I was told to go to the family class, and so I did. And then a couple years later, they asked me to teach it. And so I got trained with Jenny Makeley, who is Chris's co-leader. And so we taught a few classes together, and then it was a little too much. And then after I retired, they asked me to do it again. So I did. But what I really liked about the family support group was as Chris has already said, that it brings people together who are all kind of in the same, with some of the same issues, and just having people listen to what you have to say is just, really, really wonderful. And so, I mean, I'm not going to take up a whole lot of time, but, it's just having people come together to listen. And NAMI, I think one of the things that I've learned is I don't care what's happening, is that when people ask you to do something, or ask, I know when I was being the family teacher, we'd have to ask different members or board members or whomever to come and speak to the class. They drop everything and come and speak. And I feel like I'm doing this tonight because I dropped everything. When Chris said yes, I said, I'm there. I'm right there, because I know how important this is.
Thank you.
Right. Hi, everyone. I'm Alyx Kesselring. I am a facilitator for Connection, which is the peer support group for those of us who are living with a mental illness. I currently live with bipolar disorder. I actually came to Connection, fortunately for me, not because my hair was on fire, for once, not because of that, but because I was in an okay place with my recovery, but I really felt like there was something missing in my life. I wasn't in a place where I had many other people who were living in recovery. I didn't know many other people who were living with a diagnosis. I was kind of like the one and only person in my life who was living with one. And there were just a number of issues in my life that I didn't really know where to turn to talk about them. And that's how I found Connection. And it was, I mean, I know it sounds a little hokey. It was kind of life-changing for me to be able to sit in a room with other people who shared my diagnosis, who shared other diagnoses, and to be able to say, I am having this particular problem in my life, and to get other people saying, yeah, I have had that exact problem, and here are some ways that I handled it. And to just feel that support and that love, and to know that I could get feedback and I could get practical advice. It was just a wonderful thing. And so when I found out that there was space for another facilitator, and that that NAMI would like me to become a facilitator, I obviously jumped at that chance. Because I had been given so much as a participant that I really wanted to give back. So I've been facilitating for NAMI since January 2019 now. So I facilitate now 2 or 3 times a week, and I do have my own participation groups that I still go to manage my own mental health. And it's been wonderful. So, yeah.
Alex, where was your connection group in Evanston before you went virtual?
Oh, so we were meeting at Beth Emet's in Evanston before we went virtual.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then the other group was at Lutheran General.
Okay. All right, so thanks for sharing that. Now let's talk a little bit about the people who come to groups, the people that you sit around and engage with. What brings the people in your group to your group? What kinds of things do you see? What kinds of things do the folks that come to your group? And Dolores, in the case of your ministry, why do people come? What kinds of things are they looking for, and what kind of support are they wanting? That sort of thing.
Well, our ministry, the ministry is at Sherman United Methodist Church, which is a predominantly African-American church located at Ridge and Noyes. And the mental health ministry began in 2017 as Breaking the Ice. It was a way just for us to bring information and just to listen to the Black and Brown communities of Evanston and Skokie. When our new pastor, Reverend Dennis Oglesby Jr., began in July 2020, the Mental Health Committee took on a new format. The new name was changed to How Was It With Your Soul? And How Was It With Your Soul is a segment of the Sunday morning services. And people just come in and, talk about, especially last year, with the in July with the COVID, and everything was changing. So it was decided that segment should be included in the services every single week. So people got a chance to talk about that. And then moving into the fall, we decided our ministry decided that it would be a good idea just to bring this How Is It With Your Soul and extend it so that it would be like the new mental health ministry. And so what we decided to do was to offer support and a safe place for people who are looking for mental health who are dealing with mental health for themselves or their loved ones. So it's not like separate where the family is doing one thing and the people who are recovering are doing, everybody could just come. We want to provide education for mental health and mental illness from professionals in the community. And we were very fortunate that we had one of our associate pastors, her husband was clinical psychologist, so he was able to come and talk to us about that. And then we want to couple spiritual enrichment with mental health. So bringing parts of the Bible, as to and talk about why it's important. But before I continue, I would just like to say that, as African Americans, a lot of times, even with this COVID thing, we noticed how the disparity between how African Americans sought treatment in the beginning and how, and it was just such a horrible crisis that African Americans were not getting help for COVID. And it was the same thing with mental health ministry. It's like people didn't, because of all the history of over 400 years, if you think about it, of what was happening with racism and just tons of things that were going on, that African Americans didn't really trust the mental health community. So a lot of times what we did was, it was the Black church that supported people who were going through crises. And that's something I had to learn as an African American, because, dealing with NAMI, when I had my anxiety breakdown last summer, the first thing I did was go to the ER because I knew that I was not myself. I knew something was wrong. But other people who maybe didn't trust, professionals, healthcare professionals, other Black people, I should say, probably would not have gone to have done that. So it is the Black church that supported and nurtured people when they were having problems and doing things like that. So I just want to put that out there. And I think that's one of the reasons why our church is looking to offer that type of support. So I hope I answered the question, but anyway.
Yeah, no, you did. That's great.
Yes, thank you. So, but they, basically looking for ways to deal with mental health issues, and then coming from a Black person, I know when I was first diagnosed, I didn't hide it. I wanted to hide it. I wanted to say, well, I'm just gonna not say anything. But for some reason, something happened, and I think I just not exploded, but I just had to tell people. And what I wanted them to do was to see me go through this crisis and come out on the other side, because that's a lot of times when we don't see it. People don't see that in mental health, that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. It's not all this doom and gloom, that there is a light. And, my son is doing well, I'm doing well. And so we want to see people who are in recovery and who are and family members who are trying to deal with their loved ones come out on the other side, even though it may take years. And we've been dealing with my son for 20 years, over 21 years now. So, started as in his 20s, and now he's almost 45. So it's rough, but it's doable. You make it to the other side. That's what I wanted to say.
So I would say that people come to Connection for two reasons. They don't tend to come when they are acutely in crisis, because I think people don't have the bandwidth then. They come in the aftermath of a crisis because they're picking up the pieces and they're not sure what else to do. And we also see a lot of people who come after a hospitalization, if they're getting out of a PHP, if they're getting out of an IOP, partial hospitalization or intensive outpatient, because suddenly there's been support and some structure that they then don't have, and they need to get some support and some structure back. So that's when they come to Connection, to get support, to get some structure, to get a place to be, and just talk to people who've been in their shoes. So kind of brief, but that's what I've been seeing for people coming to Connection.
Right, and the family support group that I'm involved with, we tend to see people for the first time when a major crisis has occurred, and they find out about the group and they show up, and usually many times they're in a very emotionally agitated situation. They are, and in some cases they might even be in somewhat of a dangerous situation, depending on the illness of their loved ones. And they're first of all seeking, initially they come in hoping to get all the information they need to fix the situation, right? How do I make my loved one all better? And of course, these diseases are generally not curable. They're manageable, but they're not curable. And so just getting that piece of information takes a while for some folks. What's developed over the months and years that I've been involved is the family support group becomes its own community. We now have people that initially people would come in when there was a crisis, then the crisis would fade and then they'd go away. And since a lot of these illnesses tend to be episodic, they'll come back when their loved one has another outbreak. Now we're seeing people tend to show up in good times and bad. And I think that's really valuable, because when you're in a crisis, it's terrific to see some people that are nodding their heads, said, oh yeah, it was like that for me a year ago, and now it's a lot better. That's is to see people that you see the entire continuity of what's going on. And once again, the people that show up are also, in many cases, having a very hard time finding anybody to talk to about this stuff.
Mhm.
Even if they have a strong social network, even if they have a loving, supportive family, if those people don't have direct experience dealing with a loved one with a mental illness, they just don't get it, and or they're offering advice that's just either not sought or distinctly unhelpful. The one I love the most is when your sister-in-law tells you really need to use more tough love on your schizophrenic child, and tough love and schizophrenia, those two things don't go well. They get a lot of nonsense from people who mean well but have no knowledge of whence they speak. In our group, the group mind is a powerful thing. Someone will come in and say, well, have you heard of this drug? And chances are somebody in the group said, oh yeah, my spouse has used that in the past, or there's somebody, or they know somebody who can talk about it, or they'll say, I really need to find a therapist, or what do you think about this community mental health program? Have you heard of it? So there's a lot of information sharing that goes on, and that's kind of the nuts, and that's sort of the pragmatic side of it. But the other thing that we try to talk about in the group is bringing the focus back on something you can control. What can you control? Well, you can control your own actions and reactions, and that's really about it. So bringing the focus back to your own well-being, engaging in appropriate self-care, making sure you're not trying to pour from an empty cup, as the saying goes, because you'll just, you'll end up developing symptoms of mental illness yourself, frankly. If you start living the life, if you get into if somebody's in the water drowning and you jump in the water with them to try to save them, there's a pretty good chance that they're going to just drag you down and you're both going to drown. So we try to teach people how to stand on the shore and throw a life preserver, as opposed to on impulse jump in and get completely swamped and overwhelmed with someone else's illness. They start living the life of their loved one and they forget to live their own life. So we spend a lot of time talking about that, and I think that's what keeps people coming back.
And I think in the family to family classes, that's taught. We talk about that, not a lot, but we do have a couple of classes on how to take care of yourself while taking care of your loved one. So.
All right, so some of you have touched on the next question a little bit, but if you want to elaborate a little more or not, that's okay too. So the question I wanted to pose was, how does your group operate? So, to give the folks with us tonight a sense of what would it be like if I came to your group?
Yeah, I'll kick that one off. We are a fairly casual. We have a fairly casual format, but we do have a format. We always go over at the beginning of every session. We review the group guidelines, which are fairly straightforward. They relate to things like confidentiality, treating each other with respect, trying to focus on what's happening now, as opposed to dwelling on past pain exclusively, or fretting too much about a future that hasn't happened yet. And then the other guideline is hey, use your compassion. Okay, we're all in the same boat here. And so we go through that, and then we read through the NAMI Family Support Group Principles of Support, which there's 11 of them. That includes things like we forgive ourselves for mistakes we have made, and we forgive others for wrongs we feel have been committed against us. And we choose to be happy and healthy. We choose to return to a healthy focus on ourselves. We will never give up hope. There are a bunch of helpful principles. And it's very interesting, you know, many times we will have a newcomer and we'll read through these principles and the folks will just start to cry, right? Because these themes just can grab people sometimes, particularly if they're in emotional crisis at the time. After we do that set piece, we go around the room sort of for a check-in or an opening story, and people talk a little bit about their loved one with the illness, diagnosis if they have one, and what's been going on lately. If they're new people, what's brought them to the group. If they're regular attendees, what's been happening in the last week for you and your loved one, how are you coping? And we get around the group, everybody has a chance to speak. It's a short, you know, session for each person, a few minutes. And then usually what happens organically is a theme or two will emerge from all those opening stories. And then we have an open discussion and focused on those themes, which will usually go on for, you know, 30 to 45 minutes. The group runs from 9:15 in the morning to 11. And we usually fill up every minute of that time. And people are exchanging information, they're exchanging tips. They're also just providing support to one another. They're sharing the pain that they're experiencing, and the hope, and the strength that they've managed to find, and just talking about their experiences. And it's weird how helpful that is. You know, it's just strange and magical how important that can be in recovery, because all the family members of mentally ill people, these are family diseases. We all need recovery as well. It's not just the person who's actively managing a mental illness that's in recovery. It's every one of us, frankly. So we have to figure out our recovery toolkit just like our loved one does.
I think for us, our sessions start, we meet only once a month. I'm trying to get it to twice, but right now it's only once a month. And we start with a welcome and opening prayer. And then we ask, you know, the question, how is it with your soul? Again, probably just asking how people are feeling, you know, right now. Like I said, it could be anyone who, whether they want to talk about themselves or a loved one. And then we'll usually have a topic of discussion, and sometimes from how's it with your soul, there might be some type of theme that comes from that. So maybe that would be the topic, or we would have chosen, our mental health committee would have chosen a topic. So some of the things we've talked about was finding a good mental health professional, and we would ask the question, why do you think some African Americans don't seek mental health, seek help from a professional? And, you know, we got lots of discussion about that. And then we end with a closing prayer. So it lasts about an hour. And, you know, so far it's been pretty good. So we just hope that, I don't know what's going to happen when we reopen, but I guess we'll talk about that later. But right now, it's a small group. You know, sometimes we've had as many as 9 and as few as like 3 or 4. But, you know, it's what Chris was saying, that this is like a family, and we, you know, are coming together to talk about what is going on with our family members.
Dolores, is this group meeting virtually?
Yes. Yes, we are.
Okay.
So that's why I said, I don't know how we're going to do when we go back, because it's very easy to do now. But before, it was like trying to find a day and time that people would come, and then you got to get the food and which food is good, but you know, we like to eat. So it's kind of hard now. So anyway, we'll see.
Yeah.
So Connection runs very similarly to Chris's family support group. It's a 90-minute group. We do the same group guidelines, principles of support, 1 to 2 minute check-in. The slight difference is that we will ask if people would like more support after the check-in. If they do, we will structure our group discussion around that. If they don't, then we will pick up on some themes and have a discussion around those themes instead. So, but it's very, very similar in structure to the family support group.
So in other words, you might land on one particular person's story and kind of talk about that in the group because they would like some follow-up conversation.
Follow-up conversation, exactly.
And I must say
Or
that I've
multiple
visited
someones.
both Chris's group and Alyx's group, and I am just very pleased with both. I recommend them highly.
That's wonderful. Okay, so this is the last of the first set of questions, kind of similarly related. What has the pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic, how has it impacted your group?
Well, first of all, we're on Zoom platform, which is pretty wild. And it's been interesting. We were meeting in a conference room next to the cafeteria at St. Francis Hospital, which was a lovely place, actually, because you could get coffee or a donut or whatever and head into the meeting. And we would generally get anywhere from 5 to 15 people. 15 would have been a big group in the in-person meeting. We went on Zoom, and a couple of interesting things occurred. We lost a great number of our regular attendees that were coming to the room because they didn't have a safe space in their house where they could crank up the PC and get on a Zoom platform without their loved one who had an illness being within earshot. So they just said, I can't do it. I don't have enough privacy to do it. So we lost a number of people. I think we also lost some people because they just said, well, I'm not comfortable with this technology. And I just don't want to do this crap, which, you know, is a defensible position, I think. On the flip side, we've picked up a lot of people. We've picked up people not only from our service area, the NAMI CCNS service area, but we picked up people from Dallas, Texas. We have a regular participant from New Jersey. We have a woman from Manhattan, Kansas, who dials in. Some of them were folks that were in the group, used to live in Evanston and moved away. Some of them found our dial-in information or the Zoom link online and just piled in, and now they're regulars. Our average participant counts up. We've had as many as 25 people on the Zoom call, and in a kind of an average session is probably 15 or 16 people now. So that's what's happened in the group. Now, what's been going on in people's lives? Well, obviously, everybody's just been having a really hard time with this situation, and it's been absolute hell for folks that are trying to access care. You know, you haven't been able to get in to see a psychiatrist, therapists, or you're lucky they're doing video sessions, but and these folks who have these illnesses, you know, they got a treatment plan, and that treatment plan needs to be consistent. Exactly. If they're going to manage it, and COVID has just screwed everything up for folks, and therefore for all their family members too.
Yeah.
So it has been a real, you know, challenging and upsetting situation for everyone who's trying to, you know, the folks that are trying to maintain their recovery, and the family members that are supporting those folks. Everybody's just been improvising and spitting bubble gum in it, and we've had a lot of people, I think, that we're doing reasonably well before COVID. They've had some deterioration in the treatment plans and in the recovery trajectories, right?
Yeah.
I know in my family that's certainly been true. I haven't had a lot of deterioration, but I have a couple of 20-somethings that are both trying to manage their recoveries right now, and they have not made, they're sort of just stuck, right? They haven't. My youngest daughter actually did go into the hospital for her major depression and a suicidal ideation in the late summer last year. Everything just got to be too difficult. Couldn't see her therapist regularly. Couldn't get to the psychiatrist to get her meds adjusted, which she needed to do, and the wheels came off. She did have enough recovery to say, I need to get into the hospital now. She took herself in, and within a week or so, she had gotten some attention, and they tweaked her meds, and she was able to come out, and she's been stable ever since. But that's just a minor example of what's been. We've had people, folks that have got loved ones who have schizoaffective disorder or are on somewhere they have the stronger, more difficult versions of bipolar or borderline or schizophrenia, and it's just been very challenging to try to get care for those folks right now. Hopefully,
I think for our group, one of the things that we noticed is that how the younger people, younger women were coming back and joining our group and just talking about how just being by themselves. These are young women who are living alone probably for the first times in their lives and not being able to go out and be with their friends. I mean, it's one thing to talk to somebody, but if you're used to going out and having lunch with a girlfriend or whatever, and that wasn't happening, it was really difficult. So in that state, a few of the church members did call her and talk to her and, to make sure that she was okay. So, I think that was one of the things that really helped that we saw. And it made me think, I'm here with my husband all the time. So we have each other to bat around, but people who are living by themselves, it has got to be hard, so.
Yeah, I heard a lot from my participants about the difficulties of living alone, the isolation. That was a large impact this has had. I will also say that anybody with disordered eating seemed to have a rougher go of it. Anybody who's dealing with an addiction has had a rougher go of it. And anybody who's dealing with some form of like a domestic violence situation or a relational abuse situation has really been struggling, because any sort of support or ability to get out of that relationship, like that's just been cut off. And it's really unfortunate and really, it's really concerning. It's really concerning because I've seen people stay in situations where honestly, it would be better for them if they were able to get out of that situation, and it just hasn't been possible. So yeah, very concerning.
So we're at quarter to the 15 minutes before the end of the hour. And I think that maybe we should open it up for folks to ask questions at this point. I have a few other questions I can pose to our panelists, but I want to make sure that the folks that are joining us tonight have a chance to ask their questions. So why don't we turn to that right now? And I think Jill is going to make sure that people are unmuted.
Yeah, I apologize. I did not introduce myself at the outset. I'm Jill Squirski. Pronouns are she, hers. I'm the Engagement Services Manager at the Evanston Public Library. So yeah, we disabled the chat and the ability to unmute yourselves during the presentation, but I'm going to allow that to happen now. So if you have a question for Christine or the panelists, you can go ahead and plunk that in the chat if you'd like to type, or if you'd prefer to unmute yourselves, you can go ahead and do that now. And I'm also just going to stop the recording. So I'll thank you for the information that you've shared so far, and that will end our recorded portion of the session.